All right, join me on page 162 in your social studies textbook. If you don't have it out now, please pause the video and get out your textbook and open it to 162 so you can follow along. Okay, go ahead and look at your screen. I chose this picture because it's Egyptian art, and that's what we're going to be reading about, Egyptian art and architecture. And also a couple other reasons. Another reason is this eye looks a lot like the eye from the series of unfortunate events that we were watching in class. So I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder if there's some kind of connection. And then also over here, this looks kind of like some kind of instrument. So I thought, oh, okay, maybe it's depicting some of those scenes that it talks about in the text where it shows dancing and instruments being played and things like this. Kind of looks like maybe a harp of some kind, but I could be completely wrong. All right. Join me on 162, starting at the top. Follow along. Egyptian art and architecture. Most of the monumental architecture that remains from ancient Egypt, such as pyramids, temples, and government buildings, was built of stone. However, the main material for other buildings was mud brick. The bricks were made by filling rectangular molds with mud and leaving them in the sun to dry. Most people lived in small houses that were 2 or 3 stories high. The first floor might be a shop or a business, while the upper floors provided living spaces. Some houses were built around open courtyards where people cooked, played, and relaxed. Most houses also had special areas for worshiping a favored god. In the summer, people often slept on the roof to stay cool. Over time, Egypt's rulers stopped building pyramids, which became too expensive to construct. Pharaohs, their families, and wealthy nobles were buried instead in tombs cut into rock walls. Major temples, such as those at Luxor and Karnak, took a number of centuries to build. Some temple complexes even included a sacred lake. Most Egyptian temples followed a similar design. A long path lined with statues of sphinxes led up to the temple gate, which opened into a courtyard. In turn, the courtyard led to a large hall that represented the swamp of creation. The hall was lined with stone columns crafted to look like papyrus reeds, lotus plants, or palm trees. An altar stood at the very rear of the temple. Most Egyptian art was very formal. In sculptures and paintings, pharaohs and other important people were often shown conducting religious ceremonies or alongside gods. Okay, turning the page to 163. The ancient Egyptians loved music. Many tomb paintings and other artworks show scenes of people dancing and playing instruments such as lutes and harps. And again, in this picture, I thought this kind of looked like a harp, but anyways. Literature was also important. Scribes continued to record popular stories on papyrus scrolls. The tale of the shipwrecked sailor tells the adventures of a sailor who is lost in the Red Sea, rescued, and then returned to Egypt. So that's just one example of one of the tales that are on the papyrus scrolls. Okay, so in summary now, at the bottom of page 163. Pharaohs of the new kingdom of Egypt enlarged Egypt's territory. They expanded trade and started massive building projects. Egyptian society was divided into different social classes. Most people worked as farmers and lived in rural areas. The new kingdom was also a time of achievement in architecture, art, and literature. Okay, turning the page 164. Primary sources. Treasures of Tutanchamun. I'm going to call him King Tut again. Okay. Follow along. King Tut ruled Egypt for only 9 years and died at the age of 18. The boy king was buried in a solid gold coffin, and his tomb was filled with gold and jewelry. The tomb of Tut lay hidden in Egypt's Valley of the Kings for more than 3,300 years. In November 1922, Howard Carter, an expert in the study of ancient Egypt, discovered it. Today, the golden coffin still contains the young pharaoh's remains, hidden from view inside two outer coffins. The Egyptian Museum in Cairo displays many of Tut's treasures to show Egypt's great wealth during the height of its civilization. So there's below, if you're looking in your textbook, below you have the mask, the golden mask of King Tut to the right, and then below is the decorated jewelry chest that was found in his tomb. Okay, looking now, turning the page to page 165. These leather and gold sandals were decorated with pictures of Egypt's enemies in Asia and Africa. Oh, maybe that's some symbolism there. Maybe they put them on their shoes to show that they are stepping on their enemies. Going down below, the crook and the flail were royal staffs or rods carried as symbols of the pharaohs and of Osiris, the Egyptian god of the underworld. Okay, and the last caption, this golden fan once held ostrich feathers. It was meant to fan the pharaoh and restore the breath of life to him in the afterlife. All right, thanks for following along, and you can continue on your social studies in your Google Classroom, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks again.